Hello, I'm David Hume. History is all around, as is evidenced by this memorial to General Sir James Steele on Ballycarry's Amenity Green, telling the story of a very distinguished army officer who was born and grew up in this community. But what is history? History is objects, it's books, photographs, memories. And in this short film, we want to explore objects that people have and the story that those objects actually tell and the memories that they provoke. The objects I have are handwritten books of poetry and songs, some musical scores from my grandfather, who was born in 1876. He died in 1948, so I never knew him, but he was a raconteur and songwriter and poet in the community, and Ballycarry was fortunate to have a few people like that in the 20th century who often fed off each other. Sometimes they helped each other compose tunes, and sometimes they paid tribute to each other as well in some of the poems. So a number of items. There's musical scores here which I don't know what they sound like because I've never actually heard them, and some of them probably haven't been played since he was around. This is one called the Owl Was, and it's interesting to me because all of this, some of the poetry is maybe not great in terms of poetry. It's not Seamus Heaney quality we're looking at, but it is very, very significant in terms of social history and what it tells you. So the Owl Was, for example, is an area outside Ballycarry in the north of the village, and it's Ulster Scots name for these really old walls that are there. They're old limestone walls. They probably go back to, I would imagine, the 17th century. And they are the centre of 4 townlands meet in that area. So in the old days, in the 20th century, when he was writing this, the locals used to gather there after the work was finished in the evening. They'd gather down at the Owl Was for a bit of conversation and crack and so on. And older people have been able to recite me the chorus of this because it obviously has something that has stayed with him, because he talks about the people that he knew. And he names them, he recites who they all are that meet at the Owl Was. So he says there's Archibald Burns, Henry Burns, Nelson from Lochinleigh, James McCausland from the Moss, David Craig from Lady Bray, William John Craig and Tom Gardner, an odd straggler, and that's all. And all that's happening in the world is talked at the Owl Was. So it's really good because he gives you this sense of the people that are there, and I say, people have recited to me that chorus because they remember those names. So it really is, I think it's a fantastic wee poem to talk about the way people lived. And there wasn't much television. The entertainment in the evening was to go and have a bit of a yarn and just discuss everything that they'd heard and everything that they knew was going on and so on. And it is written as a song, but that's the chorus of it. And he also wrote another one called James Barry's Farewell, which is an immigrant song, and it's based on a local family that left from Achermorn. James Barry and Susan Barry, his wife, and their children all went off to Australia, to Victoria, and my grandfather wrote a song which possibly was performed at an event before they went, but the song was held then by the Barry family in Australia too. They had a copy of it, so it obviously meant quite a bit to them, and they became quite well off in Australia after a time. When they went, they hadn't much money. One of the sons, Wilson, came back and visited us a lot of years ago and said he remembered how his mother hadn't got the money to pay the rent one time on the farm during the recession years. This was in the 20s, but they did okay, and the family would have hundreds of acres of land now in Australia. There's still farmers out there, but he sort of sums up why they were going, and he said that they were heading. There was the whole issue over home rule was causing bit of discontent and anxiety and so on, and also the land that they were on. He referred to it as McKinley's Island barren wet spot, so it wasn't great land, and they were going to head off, and it's a great wee chorus, farewell to the dear friends of sweet Achermorn ends, and it tells a story of emigration that many people were part of in this part of the world right through. And probably his most famous piece we have, the music of it in the little book, is the Muttonburn Stream, which is to the northwest of the Ballycarry, and it's an interesting stream to me because it's named twice. Burn is the Ulster Scots word for a stream, so it is the mutton burn, and then stream is added to it as well. So he made it quite famous with this song, Mutton Burn Stream. It was recorded in 1936 on a film called The Early Bird, and it's been recorded a number of times since by folk artists. The interesting thing is that my grandfather wrote it, but it was attributed then to the man that sang it on the film, Richard Hayward, and he hadn't copyrighted this song, so apparently he went to the solicitor in Larne to see could he claim the copyright. It was an early version of the Ed Sheeran court case, but unfortunately he wasn't successful. And I think what had happened was the song had been altered slightly, and that meant it wasn't his song anymore, effectively. But it's very noticeable after that time. A lot of his songs are printed, and they all will have on them copyright, all rights reserved after that period. So there's one there in 1937, which is just after that, is copyright, all rights reserved. So that happened with a lot of the printed ones after that. And the little book we have here where the Mutton Burn Stream music is intrigues me because there are pages missing in the centre, and I think it's very possible, I can imagine that he may well have taken those pages out of the book to go to see the solicitor, and maybe they never got back again. Well, they certainly didn't get back again into the book, that's for sure. So a lot of wealth of history in terms of the social history of Ballycarry in these handwritten books, and it's a sort of connection for me because I never knew the man, but I can see that he was very, very interested and engaged in the community, and he also was a far better writer than I would be in terms of his script here. I'm much untidier than that.